Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Seminoles Daily. I'm your host, Rob Krause, and today we're going to talk about the running back position. We've talked quarterback the last couple days, we've touched on defensive end, we've touched on linebacker, but today let's focus a little bit on the guys who run the rock, the guys who keep the ground going, control the tempo, push the pile, look to be the big game breaker. Through a crease will part your hair, as old Keith Jackson used to say, as part of Mike Norvell's entire identity. And what he tried to build this program off of was running the ball. So we'll talk a little bit about what the Noles are trying to do to address that position. But first, as always, I want to encourage everyone to please like and subscribe and share these videos as we look to build this channel. Look, personally, this is our, I believe, our ninth episode. I love doing this. Okay. I love talking about Florida State, even when they're bad. It's still my passion. It's still my thing that gets me up every day to just talk about the Noles. Good, bad, win, lose. It doesn't matter. I've been in with this program for over 30 years now. I'm invested. I'm in this. I was here before Mike Norvell. I'll be here after Mike Norvell. I'll be here. Whoever is running this ship, whoever is winning national championship, or if they're not winning, more than two games, it doesn't matter. I'm still tuning in because look, I love this program. What else? What else are we gonna do? We're not gonna abandon it now. So let's keep this conversation going. Let's keep this channel build up. Let's keep talking about this. And as I always say, we're in on the ground floor now, baby. We're at that low level, and when they rise back up to that top, you can say, "Hey, I've been there for the lows, and I'm here for the highs." And the highs are great, but the lows make those highs that much sweeter. But trying to get back to those highs is the Florida State program, and getting a guy like one Braden Tyson could help contribute that way. Braden Tyson is a four-star, a blue chip out of Snellville, Georgia, plays for the Brookwood High School program there. He is currently the 19th ranked athlete in the 24/7 composite. He is the 26th ranked prospect in the state of Georgia. Now, Georgia has really done an exceptional job as a state the last several years of building up its high school level talent. They've invested in the coaching, they've invested in the facilities. I mean, you look at some of these schools, some of these high schools down there in Georgia, some of these stadiums, some of these facilities, and it's better than the D2, D3 schools, in the Northeast more than half the time. Heck, it's almost as good as some of the 1AA schools in the Southeast. That's kind of where Georgia has done their job to really kind of compete with Florida and Texas and California as being really one of those premier high school recruiting grounds. So you got a top 26 kid out of Georgia like Mr. Tyson, then you're doing a pretty good job there, I think. So a little bit more about this kid. He is a squat young man, 6 feet 235. So he's got a good wide frame to him. He's got some good height. He's got some good speed. He is a frequent visitor to Tallahassee, and that's the good news. That's the good vibes. In fact, he has said he has been to Tallahassee by his guest almost 10 times. So he certainly has developed a good relationship with the staff, in particularly one Cam Martin, the running backs coach. And what I like about this, here's what I've always believed. Most schools, you do assign your primary recruiter to the position that you're recruiting. Your running backs coach, you like to recruit the running backs. The defensive end coach, you like to recruit the defensive end because, look, they're the guys that are going to be coaching these kids for, hopefully 4 years, five, maybe one, I don't know, depending on this modern day sport that we have. But the truth of the matter is, you like them to identify the talent, a guy they can work with and mold. It's not often the case. It's not always the case. Sometimes your primary is a guy who has a good just history with the high school coaches in that region, in that area, recruiting territory wise. Maybe he's just got a good rapport, again, with the school you're looking at. But the bottom line is that he really likes Cam Martin, has very much said a lot of positive things about him. So let's hope that Cam kind of keeps that relationship going. One thing I also did notice in his interview, he talked about how he thinks the staff not only sees him development as a player, but also says they take an interest in developing him as a young man. And that's something that, look, we're going to consistently kind of not be Mike Norvell's biggest fan right now. And we are going to kind of call a spade and maybe dog him on some things. But I do genuinely believe that Mike does care about these kids and wants them to succeed in life outside of football. And I think part of that relationship building is a key element of this. So I do like to hear stuff like that coming from Mike. Now, of course, as always, Florida State is not going to be the only program vying for this young man's interest and services. He has also mentioned Rutgers. Again, Greg Schiano, seriously, just in it with Florida State. He took his years at Miami as the DC there very personally, apparently, and he has just made it his mission so far this recruiting cycle to just be all up in Florida State's business, trying to get their recruits. Florida State trying to pay a visit back there as well. So again, we got a little Rutgers FSU recruiting rivalry developing, which is not something I would have predicted really ever in my life. But hey, here we are. It's 2026. That's just kind of where you are as a program right now, where Rutgers is as a program. So that's kind of the situation there. Let's hope that eventually Rutgers can get pushed out and we're not necessarily competing with Greg Schiano really for all these recruits, because there is another school that Mr. Tyson did mention is kind of at the top of the list next to Florida State, and that is, of course, South Carolina is in the mix. He has visited them frequently. He said not as much as Florida State, but pretty much more than the other schools. So he very much values Shane Beaner, thinks he's a pretty darn good, communicator and coach. Says he loves the vibes from the staff as well. Also, really likes the way they develop running backs at the school, which, to his credit, there is a pretty good history between Marshawn Lattimore and, of course, George Rogers back in 1980. But can't quite agree that it's really been a great development school at that position over the last several years. But hey, they do have a history. They do have produced some pretty good talent over the years there in Columbia. So they're certainly somebody to keep an eye on. Now, the thing that I really, saw that kind of jumped out at me when I was reading his interview is that he has set a commitment date for June 12th. Now, why does that date sound awfully familiar? Because if you've been watching Daily, which I hope you have been, you know that we had mentioned linebacker Makai Allen is also visiting that day, because what we are entering within the next couple of months is what we like to call blue chip season. It is this very critical juncture, this kind of late spring, early summer, kind of May to mid June. That's kind of the recruiting hotbed, the big weekends that you're allowed to have all these kids come in for their official visits. And you really like to kind of have a big weekend where you can get as many of them in as you can, and really kind of do an all out blitz. Sometimes you have a camp during that time, things like that. But you really just get these kids in there, really hammer it in before the recruiting dead period happens there in the kind of the middle end of summer. And that's why June 12th is kind of a very important weekend, as you got two blue chip prospects already signing their official, coming down for their official visit that day. There's also going to be more that we're going to talk about over the next, weeks and months as we kind of build up to that final weekend. Again, that's blue chip season. That's where you like to see. That's where you like to have your kids coming in. You get them talking. You get them conversing. Maybe you get one. You got one kind of lead recruit. You circle that guy as, listen, I know that he's going to commit. I know we got him to commit. So let's get him to talk to that kid and that guy, and we can get them together. And all of a sudden, they're talking about maybe committing on the same day and signing and building something. So that's going to be kind of fun. The following, next kind of late May, like I said, late May, early June, summer months, to keep an eye on the players that are coming in and who Mike's trying to plant the seeds, as we say here, as blue chip season rolls. Because the truth of the matter is, this really is Mike's last hurrah to grow the garden. We talk about being on the hot seat. We talk about Mike's job security and what his goals and aspirations are and should be. And it still should be, regardless of what he thinks his job status is, it should be very prevalent to Mike that if there's one thing that can help continue to keep the heat off, is if I have this kid on June 12th, I have Micah Allen on June 12th, and I have the other players that we're talking about on June 12th or June 5th or June, 19th through the 21st, those weekends, these big recruiting weekends. If I can get, 4 or 5 verbal commitments from these kids. Rock solid. I can get that recruiting ranking up. I think currently Florida State's around 20th last I saw. So you'd really like to maybe see after those big couple of weekends, maybe they get back up into the 15 range, maybe to that, 12, 15 range, which look, when we're going through the list, you're going to be, not too impressed about maybe the size, the amount of blue chip prospects that are coming there, but you will also, in totality, take it into the fact that this is a program that's won 7 games in the last 2 years, hasn't won a road game in the last 2 years. So the simple fact that a kid like Braden Tyson is considering you taking an official visit for you, the same weekend that a guy like Micah Allen is taking a weekend for you, despite the fact that you haven't been to a bowl game in 2 years, despite the fact that you have, won, I think, 4 ACC games in the last 2 years. Um, says a little bit testament to the program prestige that doesn't quite go away despite the poor numbers of success. So again, this is where Mike can really, hopefully, if you are a Mike Norvell fan, apologist, or really just a fan of the program and know that it's in the best interest for Mike to keep his job, then you hope that Mike does take advantage of these blue chip weekends, takes advantage of the relationship that Cam Martin has with a kid like Braden Tyson and really hammers that in there and gets these kids to, sign on the dotted or, commit to the dotted line and stay that commitment through the success that you hopefully have in this, early part of the fall and then the late part of the fall. Because if there's one thing that you can evaluate and you evaluate a coach, part of that temperature check as well, how's the recruiting going? How's the high school class looking? Because maybe, just maybe, Mike winds up signing, a top 12 class or a top 14 class, which would not be the top 10 class that we expect to see at Florida State, but would certainly be more in line with a program that's on the rise and continuing to rebuild and climb, which is what apparently Mike and this administration after last year have locked themselves into. So, like I said, hopefully, uh, you know, Mike has a pretty good set of recruiting blue chip season garden growing to help build this program. Now, like I said, to recap, Braden Tyson, the 4-star kid out of Georgia, June 12th, he's coming for an official visit, has a listed July 3rd as his commitment date, his announcement date. TBD as he takes his visits and hears all the offers, but, pretty cool to celebrate over a holiday maybe that Florida State lands a big 4-star running back. Hopefully, that's some good news again, like around that holiday season. South Carolina seems to be the other team in the mix for his services. As mentioned before, we are coming into blue chip season. We will be talking a lot over the next, few weeks and months about all the kids we expect to see coming to visit Tallahassee during those official weekend visits on the old blue chip history. And again, hope and pray that Mike Norvell can land some of these kids to flip the momentum and then flip the vibes around Florida State recruiting. Because look, like we say, it only sometimes takes 1 or 2 guys. Sometimes it only takes 1 or 2 kids to be the lead recruiter, to come in, get the other kids to flip, other kids to sign, other kids to commit, other kids to want to come and be a part of the climb and build in Tallahassee. Not just for 2026. There's going to be some 2027, prospects. Excuse me, not 2027 because we are in 2027. The 2028 class, those kids, those prospects as well, those juniors who are coming for those junior days. You just want to get them involved. You got to start these relationships so early now in college football. So you really like to see and hope that Florida State and Mike Norvell can just kind of build some momentum here and keep that train going. And hopefully, again, keep Craig Schiano and Rutgers out of the backyard and taking all these Florida State prospects. So, like I said, a lot to discuss over these next few weeks here at Seminoles Daily. Please, again, like and subscribe and share. We'll keep talking, pumping out the content here on the daily. This has been Rob Krause for Seminoles Daily, and I will talk to you later. Go Noles.